Thank God. Very much so, yeah.
Can anyone not hear Havdalah? We're gonna make Havdalah anyways.
Oh, what a hell year.
You know what? No one has to admit if they didn't hear. I didn't you know? All right, please sing along. You know?
Amen. What's up?
Thank you.
Wow, beautiful.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Kalmus, for being here. Really looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay. So just gonna go here. Press the chords. Just make sure it's like okay. It's good, Donnie?
Far away.
It's pretty far away. Okay.
Want to put it up on the chair right there?
Yeah, you can put it on the screen.
I think we can make some space for the chairs. Do you want like in front of us?
Yeah, we tried to do it over there, but I think it's too far.
Oh, yes, I think it's too far.
Maybe if you could actually bring that thing over here.
Martel, can you pass the drum? That would be it. Cool.
No, too high.
About this?
Too low. Too low. Too low.
Is this a song? It's a song.
Definitely something's happening.
Yeah.
The thing is, everybody's gonna be looking at my nose. It's gonna be weird, you know.
Right.
A little higher if I can.
You want to hold it? Of course you can. You want to hold it?
Here, let me get you some books. Violet can just share.
Okay, just make sure they're not
Why do you
British.
put that down on the chair then?
Oh, yeah, that's what I said, but then it
Yeah, you
was
could stand
You will understand it upside down.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh.
No, it's wax.
What's that?
This is what about right here?
Okay,
You
Again?
can kind of open it.
we're
No.
getting closer.
You can turn the chair over
Put it in the hook.
because it only needs the camera to.
Okay, first of all, this thing is very wet.
It'll be
Never mind, phone's gonna break on the way to
Anybody have a napkin?
Yeah, let me see.
Tissue.
Waterproof.
Turn the chair.
Okay. We got the
Oh,
big
this
ones.
is a lot of secular wisdom here.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all he has here.
Yes. Okay. There we go. Now like this. Oh, now we're up. Yeah. No, it's not.
Pointing at the ceiling.
Let's see. Take this. Like this. Okay.
Right here.
Oh yeah, we can do it like that. That's good. Perfect. Thanks. Okay, we're doing it. Let's go.
All right, we'll edit it all out.
Yeah. Okay.
What's going on with this?
So you still? It's also like I don't know. Like
No, I'm saying, how do you want it?
they don't want me to be comfortable, so they want to make sure that I'm getting like recorded on multiple sides.
All right.
Okay. Just keep it like that. It's a. So now that it's 9:30, am I still doing the hour? Or you want me to cramp it in to a half?
No. Do a full hour.
Do it full
Full
hour.
hour. At least.
Okay. So I'm gonna start.
Recording in progress.
Okay, so first of all, it's a really, really big merit to be here with everybody. And I want to say thank you for coming. And I also want to say Ashreinu. We're very, very lucky that we're Jewish. And we don't always get to appreciate it so much. My grandfather was in the camps. He went in when he was 13 years old, right after he got bar mitzvah. And he came out at 18. And his whole family was killed. And Hitler said that if you let one Jewish boy survive the camps, you can't let one boy survive. Because if you let one Jewish boy survive, he's going to find the Torah and he's going to start the whole thing over again. And he was right. And so now, after 15 years of atheism, I found the Shem in my life. And I'm trying to start the whole thing over again. So I'm happy to be here with you guys. And I'm gonna start just by talking a little bit about myself. One, hopefully, so that you can relate or resonate in your own way. And then after that, I'm gonna talk about the turning point in my life and what I've done since then to keep that going. And I believe that these things that I'm going to speak about are not just inspirational or powerful, but they're real. And they're something that you can utilize every day. You know, I heard somebody recently, I overheard a conversation. They said that the first step is always inspiration. And then the final step is transformation. But the middle step is perspiration. So, you know, we're Jewish and we sweat a lot. But the main thing is that there is a process of work that takes place in between those two. And that part we don't want. The Baal Tanya has a very beautiful introduction to the Tanya. And it's something I speak about all the time. And that is that there's a short, long road and a long, short road. This is what the Baal Tanya says. And that most people are trying to take the short, long road. They're trying to get to their land of Israel, whatever that is for them, whether it's wholeness or peace or joy, clarity, love. That's their land of Israel. And everybody is trying to take the short, long road, meaning they want the shortest path to get there, which makes sense. But by trying to take that short path, they end up taking a very long time to get there. But then there's a long, short road. And even though it appears very, very long and very intense, and there's a lot of perspiration, but if you start that journey with conviction and with enthusiasm and with hope, then you'll find it's actually a very short road. And what I'm going to present to you tonight is a long short run, and not a short long run. So I hope Bezrat Hashem you guys are able to connect and to draw these teachings and this advice into your life. I normally would stay afterwards and talk to you guys, which I love to do and I think is important. My wife happens to be very sick, and she's also very pregnant. So between the two, I feel like I have to put my boundaries up. You know, this is part of me getting healthy, going home and making sure that she's okay. So this class is in the merit of a refuah shlema for Batel, I think, Bat Mazal. They sponsored this class. So for her, she just gave birth to a baby boy. And then the baby boy should also have a refuah shlema. His birth, I think, has been pushed off a little bit because of jaundice. So that's why they're sponsoring the class. And that this should be, you know, refuah for all of us. Mamash, refuah for all of us. So I grew up in New Jersey, and I had a lot of struggles growing up. I was bullied a lot as a child, and I also didn't understand social norms, which is probably why I got bullied a lot. And the friends that I thought that I had turned out not to be my friends. And that was a big change for me in my life when I realized that people were not necessarily as kind as I was, or not as trustworthy as I was. People spoke about you when I didn't, and those things like really hurt me, and they made me think twice about the world, and they kind of jaded the way that I saw everything. And in trying to find answers for how people could be like this, when I was in middle school, I found a book on evolutionary theory. And then everything made sense. Oh, we're just monkeys. And therefore, you know, I need to have like the one up on this other monkey. So I have to have higher status, or I have to look a certain way. Everything is about survival. And then I started like all of these behaviors that I saw from other people started to make a lot more sense to me. And I started to become a religious atheist. I would read all the books. I would watch all the YouTube debates. I would actively go to people who had any vestige of hope in spiritual belief, and I would spend a lot of effort in trying to convince them that it was a cult. And the reason I did so was because I felt like it was the main barrier to progress in the world. But I didn't realize until much later on that it was rooted in a lot of emotional pain. And usually when a person feels broken, they need to bring that out to the world so that they can feel not so alone. By the time I got to college, I was a full-blown atheist. And but at the same time, I was searching. I was taking classes on Buddhism and Hinduism and nihilism and every other ism. And on the one hand, if anybody saw me, it would be clear it didn't make sense what I was doing. On the one hand, I'm saying that nothing exists. And on the other hand, fastidiously, I think it's a real word, running after meaning in my life. I experienced many depressive episodes since I was a child. Since about 10 years old, I had a depressive episode every winter for about 15 straight years. And I never told anybody. And I got very good at pretending that I was okay when I wasn't okay, which is part of the reason why I was sick for so long. You know, you might think it's a bad thing, like or a good thing that I'm able to not let people know. But one of the things that I found out is when you're very good at pretending to be happy when you're not, it takes a long time to get better. And it takes a long time for people to want to help you or try to help you because they don't really know that you're sick. And when I went to the land of Israel for the first time on birthright, actually just right prior to that, I was at a concert and I used to experiment with different drugs, alcohol and marijuana and cocaine, acid, and anything else I could get my hands on. I had a very big hole inside of me and I was trying very hard to fill it up. And when I couldn't find anything that was internal, like many people in our generation, I tried to fill it up externally. And the first time that I tried acid, I had a chazon. I had a type of vision. I was at the concert. And instead of being at the concert, I was in some other place. And I told my friend who was with me that we need to go visit the land of Israel. And he was very shocked by what I said because, like, are you at the concert with me? What are you talking about? And I said, yeah, we just have to go. I don't know how to explain it to you, but we got to go. So he signed it up for me. We got on. I saw for the first time somebody wrapping tefillin on the plane. I was about 24 years old. Thought he was hurting himself. I said to my friend, what type of trip did you get us on? And then I went over. He goes, no, I'm Jewish. This is what Jewish people do. Every man, like, they do this every day. I'm like, okay, it's weird. And then they wanted to hang out with us a lot because they thought we were, like, fun. So we ended up spending a lot of time with these non-Orthodox Persian guys. And after the trip was over, they invited me to extend the trip and to stay with them. But I had planned to go to another concert. So I was like, I'm going to go home, actually. I spoke to my dad. My dad said, listen, you're going to graduate school soon. I was going to be a social worker, to be a mental health therapist. Which is, by the way, most of the reason why people engage in that occupation is often because they've had their own suffering. And as a result of that, they develop a tremendous amount of empathy for others' suffering. And in a very roundabout way, in trying to heal themselves, they do so by trying to heal others and hoping that theirs comes along the way. And therefore, every therapist needs a therapist. So he said, you're not going to have any time, you're not going to have any money. See how much it costs to extend the trip. So I looked it up. For 1 month more in Israel, $50. So if anybody knows, that doesn't make any sense. It's not teva, it's not nature, but at this point I was still a self-proclaimed atheist, so I didn't think much of it. And I stayed. And a week before I left, I was in a city called Eilat, and I was coming out of a bar, and I saw a group of girls, and they looked different. They had, like, shirts down to here, and they had skirts down to here. And I went over, I started talking to them, and my new modern Orthodox friends came over to me and told me, David, these girls are religious. And I go, yes, so? And they said, this is not like Penn State. You can't just go up to people and start talking to them. I'm like, no, it's cool, don't worry about it. They're really chill. So I started speaking to them for a while. And we had a really good conversation. And then I asked them if they want to hang out the next night. So they said, tomorrow night Shabbat. So I said, what's that? She started to explain it to me. I thought it was a party, so I invited myself. She said, it's not a party. I'm with my family, I'm like, okay, yeah, Facebook. She's like, no. So I was, like, striking out on everything. And then I'm like, okay, this is obviously not working out. And it was nice to meet you. So we left, and I was thinking about her for, like, the next few hours. And now it's like 2 or 3 a.m. And it's the only, like, restaurant we could find that's still open for some late night munchies. Go into the pizza place over there. And she walks in with her sisters and her friends a few hours later, very late at night. Apparently one of them was craving sushi and wouldn't let them go to sleep until she got it. This is apparently the only kosher place that was open like that late at night. So I started talking to them again, and eventually I asked for their number. One of them gave me their number. They said, well, we don't live here. We live with my dad in Tel Aviv. Parents are divorced. We ended up moving to my dad's house. That's where we are. I mean, oh, it's great. We're actually spending our last week in Israel and Tel Aviv. Which we were. So we hung out a few times, and I fell in love with her. Mm-hmm. And I went home, and I continued to text her, talk to her, even Skype and chat with her. I never told her how I felt. I had a long history of getting rejected. Every girl that I liked either didn't like me or eventually didn't like me. And so I was very scarred from this. The only, like, vestige of hope that I had is that my mother would always tell me how great I was. But ultimately it wasn't proving itself, in evidence-based ways. So I ended up building a tremendous wall to the extent that I never told girls anymore how I felt. I just pretended that I don't care. And but then she would tell me, like, guys that she's been setting up with on dates. I pretend that it didn't bother me. I was, like, secretly throwing up. And then one day I accidentally told her that I loved her on a Skype conversation. It really was an accident. And I hung up the thing. and I spent like the next hour in the shower trying to convince myself she didn't hear me. And then when I came back out, I looked at my phone and she said, "Did you just tell me that you love me?" And I said, and then I started sweating again, and I was like, go back in the shower. I didn't know how to respond because, like, she's from Israel, she's religious, she's Sephardic, she's Yemenite, I'm Ashkenazi, I'm secular, I'm an atheist, I live all the way on the cross, like, side of the world. What are the chances this is going to work out? First of all, nothing ever worked out for me, but, like, what are the chances this is going to work out? I said, I'd rather maybe, like, just take the blow now before graduate school starts. That way I can just, lick my wounds instead of, like, dragging this on. So I told her, yeah, I do. And then she said, David, this is not like America. You can't just, like, tell people you love them, it means something, where I'm from, my family. And I told her, no, I really do mean it. She didn't respond, like, all day. And then I thought, like, here we go again. Another one bites the dust. I got crushed again. It was one of the worst days of my life. And then, like, I turned my phone up. I threw it against the wall. And then right before I went to sleep that night, I opened up my phone and I got a text back from her saying that she loved me too.
Wow.
So that was the beginning of our relationship. And then as things went on, she realized I wasn't just secular. I was like a flaming atheist. And then it became a little bit weird. So she felt bad for me. And so she said, why don't you believe? And I had all of these deep philosophical, scientific, quandaries. And she didn't understand anything I was talking about. And then she said, David, I don't really know what to tell you. I know Hashem exists, but there are people who have answers to these questions. So eventually she told me that there's like Orthodox rabbis and they have answers to these questions. So you should go on campus at UCLA and go ask them. So I decided to start going around and I was looking, searching. And eventually I connected to this one rabbi and I started going there every Shabbat for a year. I thought it was mamash a cult, but I really enjoyed Shabbat and I thought something was very real and something that was very beautiful and something that was very functional and all these things that I wasn't used to. So I kept coming. And after about a year, one of them gave me a book and I read it. And the night that I read this book, I had an epiphany. And I realized that not only was I wrong for the past 15 years, Hashem really does exist. And that the whole reason I've been suffering this whole time is because I'm a Yid. It's because I'm a Jew. And I'm a stranger in a strange land. And I realized that night that my whole life was going to change. Because I'm not the type of person to like do things in a parv way. That's probably why I was such a radical atheist before that. And like, for me, as someone who had suffered so much from depression and anxiety my whole life, and so many therapists, had taken so many psychiatric prescription drugs. So God exists. It's like, this is a new world. This is going to be it. Like, all my problems are going to go away now. And they didn't. And in fact, they got worse. And very much so, to the extent that I got so depressed, it was hard for me to get up from bed for a few years while I was with my wife. And we had 2 children. And she was taking care of me and the kids. And I was crying every day. I was in a serious major depression. I didn't know how to get out. I went to many therapists. I went on many diets. I went to many doctors. I literally tried everything. And nothing worked. And with every failure, it brought me more and more despair. And then finally, I was contemplating suicide. And it was something that I felt horrible about. And it wasn't because I actually wanted to. I just couldn't keep doing what I was doing. And eventually I just decided that I was a risk to myself. So I hospitalized myself. And when I went in there, they put me into the psych ward. And I spent a few months there. And that was the turning point in my life. When I was in the psych ward, I had one book with me. It's called Likutei Moharan. and surrounded by people who are severely troubled, I said, like, this is it. Like, I'm either going to completely fall apart right now, and my whole life is going to spiral out, and who knows where that is going to lead me, or I'm going to have to make a tremendous change in my life. And I'm going to have to dig down deep and find parts of myself that I didn't know existed. And I'm sitting on that bed, and I'm talking to Hashem. Rabbi Nachman says that one of the things, actually the most effective thing that a person can do to create a real relationship with Hashem and to achieve tremendous closeness with Him and a lot of other benefits as well, is something called Hitbodedut, or Hispodedus, where you take a time alone, take away all external stimuli, you shut up your smartphone, texting, friends, social media, technology, and you go to a quiet place where nobody is. And he says for an hour a day, you should talk to Hashem like He's your best friend. So I was never doing this, even though I was learning about it for years. And when I got there in the bed, I said to myself, you know what? As I had tears coming down my eyes, everything that I've tried to do in my life has blown up miserably. I really thought I was going to be a huge success as a kid. And whether it was my marriage or my being a father, my job, my education, my spiritual journey, just all went to Gehenna, to hell. And I said, like, this is the best that I could have done. And this is where I am. I said, Hashem, if you're real, and Rabbi Nachman's right, so the only way I'm actually going to have my life change is if you help me, if you change it. If I stop trying to change it, and I allow you to change it. And I said, if you really are there, and you really are going to help me, so then I'm going to need to invest a serious amount of time in talking to you about my problems and begging you for help. And I decided while I was in the psych ward, from then on, I would take on the Eitzah of Rabbi Nachman to start speaking to Hashem for an hour a day. Talking to Him about all my problems, speaking about my past, the trauma and the suffering, as well as the joys and the successes of my life, and begging Hashem for a change. This was the beginning of a complete revolution in my life. I went from being a very desperate non-believer to not so soon after developing a tremendous amount of emunah, believing in Hashem in a very, very intense way. One of the reasons why is because Rabbi Nachman says that emunah is not a belief. Emunah is an action. And where do we see this? In the Torah, it says that Moshe's hands were emunah. His hands were emunah, faith. How can a person's hands be faith? Doesn't make any sense. So if you look at Targum Onkelos, you look at Rashi, his hands were up in tefillah. So Rabbi Nachman says, you see from this that emunah is tefillah. Faith is prayer. So the more that you speak to Hashem, the more you're going to believe in Hashem. And it makes sense, right? The more you believe in someone, the more you're going to connect to them. The less you believe in someone, the less you are. So I started doing this every day. And instead of utilizing the anger and sadness that was inside of me, I started to use different approaches, which Rabbi Nachman spoke about. And these are, I narrowed them down to five transformative tools that we can bring on a practical level in our life. I'll give you examples. And Bezrat Hashem, at the end of the class, you can ask questions. I think we're having like an open forum. I don't know exactly what that is, but we're going to do it. And hopefully it's going to be helpful. So the first thing is like this. Rabbi Nachman says that if a person knows that every single thing that takes place in their life is for the absolute best, they have a taste of Gan Eden before they get there. So what does that mean? That means that my depression was the best thing that could have happened to me. That means that my anxiety was the best thing that could have happened to me. That means that me being rejected over and over again by the other sex was the best thing that could have happened to me. That means that everything blowing up in my face in the worst possible way is the best thing that could have happened to me. So if that's true, even though I don't believe that, how do I respond to that? How would a person respond to that? So you say, thank you. So I started to say thank you. for all of the problems. And I also started to say thank you for things that you wouldn't think to say thank you for. For instance, I had stopped being a mental health therapist, and I started learning in Kollel. Before that, in yeshiva, Aleph Bet at like 26, 27 years old, and hoping to find that truth that I was looking for to be able to help other people and myself. And one of the good things about being in that, like a work environment, is that if you're so depressed, you could just go in your car and take a nap, and you don't have to clock out, and nobody's on you about it. And if you tell somebody I'm really struggling, they say, don't worry, we support you. And so I would say, thank you, Hashem, so much that I'm in the only job possible that I could be so depressed, and they're not going to take money out of my salary, and they're not going to give me a hard time about the fact that I'm taking, a couple hours to take a nap in my car after, right? Like that. Thank you, Hashem, that I'm sleeping, even though I'm sleeping all day so much, and I used to just be so angry about why I was always so tired and fatigued. I would say, thank you, Hashem, that you gave me a car to sleep in instead of being out on a bench like many people have to sleep. And I could do it on my own in a car that's heated. This is one thing. Thank you for everything in my Yibodadu. Thank you for the problems. Thank you for the blessings that I never really thought about. Thank you for the good things that I've experienced in my life. Another thing that Rabbi Nachman says, which is unbelievable, is that the place that you struggle is a klipa. Now, what's beautiful about that? If you imagine a fruit, let's say a banana, okay? Bananas are very sweet, they're delicious. But if you had never eaten a banana before, and nobody ever told you how to access the banana, if you tried eating it as it is, it would be very bitter, because there's a peel on the outside. So, but if you understand that the peel is actually hinting to the fact that there's a very sweet fruit on the inside, then you're not daunted by the peel anymore. And you don't think you're the peel, because you realize the peel is always hinting towards fruit. So Rabbi Nachman says that if you struggle with something, it means you have in potential the opposite, the whole other way. So for instance, if you struggle like me with depression, Rabbi Nachman says that means that you have the capacity for the highest level of simcha, the highest level of joy. If you struggle with atheism, like I did, it means it's because you have in potential the greatest ability to have emunah in the whole world. You struggle with anger, it means because you have in potential the ability to have the highest level of peace, and so on and so forth. Now, why is that so revolutionary? Because in my bed when I'm crying, instead of me saying, woe is me, and here we go again, and my life is like this, and why did I turn out like this? Instead, the conversation and the dialogue became, Hashem, if I'm ever going to get out of this place, it must be that I'm the strongest person in the whole world, and I don't know it. Because that's the only way I'm ever going to get out. Thank you for making me the strongest person in the whole world. Even though I've never tasted it. I've never experienced it. Now, a person might say, I'm tricking myself, right? Or my students in A say pop psychology, right? You're just convincing yourself. You usually hear that the truth hurts. This is BS. Rabbi Nachman says that lies hurt. The truth makes you happy. The whole reason why a person's in a state of depression, such an intense state of sadness, is because they are cogitating, they're meditating on some core beliefs that aren't based in reality. They're not true. They got it from their parents, they got it from their society, they got it from their community, they got it from their school. They got it, like Rabbi Nachman says, from Chokhmah Tzoniot, secular wisdom. And as a result of this, you end up believing this thing so much that you get stuck in an emotional space that you can't get out of. But maybe it's the opposite that's true. Maybe the whole reason I'm in this space is because I'm constantly thinking about lies. And lies are what's killing me. There was once a story of a Hasidic master. He wasn't very learned in Torah. And somebody came to him, was discussing a case with him. Very, very difficult case that the greatest Dayanim, the greatest Jewish judges were working on. They couldn't figure out an answer to. So the Hasidic master said, can I look at the case? And he said, yeah, sure. And he's thinking about it, and he comes over, he goes, I think this is the answer. And the guy goes, are you serious? He goes, the greatest minds of the generation can't figure it out. You don't even learn Torah. How would you know the answer to this problem? He goes, don't think about it so much. Just bring it back to them. See what they have to say. So he thought it was a joke, but whatever. He brought it back. He told them what this guy that he met at the Shabbaton told him. And they thought about it, and they said, wow, that's the answer. And they couldn't believe it. So he came back, running back, and he said, how the heck did you know the answer? He said, it's really easy. When it popped into my head, it made me happy. And that's how I knew it was true. In Kabbalah, they explain that there's 10 sfirot. There's 10 revelations or emanations of godliness in the world. The highest two are called Chokhmah and Bina. They're male and female. The Zohar says that these are two lovers, they never depart from each other. In the language of Kabbalah, Chokhmah represents the truth of truth, Emet Lamito, the deepest possible truth. Bina corresponds to Simcha, to joy, very intense internal joy. That's why the word Besimcha is Machshava, if you flip the letters around, because joy comes from thought that's based on truth, okay? So if you are coming on to some very deep truth, it has to make you happy. And therefore, if you're thinking about something and it's making you sad, it's because it's a lie. Now, a person might say, well, that sounds very nice and optimistic, but how do you ever work on yourself if you're constantly thinking about things that only make you happy? And the answer is something very deep. This is actually going to go to the fifth point. So I'm going to just I didn't really think this one through too much, but you start with Hipodadu. We're going to come back to that. Rabbi Nachman says that you need to run away from sadness like it's a substance abuse, right? In the secular world, in the modern world, we think that sadness is a normal emotion like any emotion, like fear, like joy, like happiness, like connection, like peace. Rabbi Nachman says that sadness is not a normal emotion. In fact, it's the most destructive force in the world, much more destructive than any error you can possibly make, and it will bring you to every error under the sun. Sadness. Where does he get this from? So in the Zohar, it says that what is the Sitra Achra? What is the forces of negativity in the world that are causing everybody to be in constricted states, that are causing disruption and chaos within personal lives, communities, societies? The Zohar says unbelievable, that the Sitra Achra is atzvut, it's sadness, depression. Negativity is sadness, that's what it is. But it seems to reject that concept of it's an emotion and I should let myself experience my emotions, make a healthy space for this emotion. Remember when I used to get very sad, I would turn on very sad music, get myself in the mood, get a nice cup of wine, some scotch, let myself really sink into this sadness. I'm like, wow, this is great, I'm just I'm such a loser and I suck. My life's never going to get any better. Let me listen to Dave Matthews Band, some very deep, dark music right now. It makes me feel somebody also has been in that place. And that would make it last so much longer. But it was so sweet for me because I didn't realize at the time, it's mamash a taiva. It's a taiva. It's like a taiva for food. It's like a taiva for a drug. It's something unbelievable. So Rabbi Nachman says you have to run away from it at all costs. So instead of sinking into it like I used to, I had to force myself, literally, to start doing so many things different. What does it mean, simcha at all costs? It means only listening to happy music, even though I don't feel happy. That means that if I am feeling sad because of a thought that I'm having, I'm rejecting this thought, even though it's so juicy right now. Means that even though I feel terrible about myself, I'm going to force myself to find something good in myself. Literally running away from sadness like it's death itself. This is one of the biggest changes of my life. And by the way, this is a very secret tip that Rabbi Nachman gives. And at first, you might have things inside of you start to reject it immediately. So before you do that, just hear it, and then when you leave here, think it over, okay? Rabbi Nachman says that what is it that causes sadness? He says it's called secular wisdom. Secular wisdom causes sadness. And I never understood. Secular wisdom causes sadness. How could that be? So it explains like this. Spiritual wisdom is the fruit. Secular wisdom is called chokhmot chitzoniot, external wisdom. It could be true, but it's also the outside of the fruit, which we call peel. You ever played Mario Kart before?
Yeah.
Okay. You ever notice that the worst thing to be confronted by was the peel? If you got rocked by a bomb or something, so you get back up, you start all over again.
And you continue straight.
And you continue straight. But if you hit the peel,
Spin around.
you spin out. You not only stop in your tracks with the other things, which will be corresponding, let's say, to anger or to frustration or to lack of self-confidence, but if you hit the peel, which we're going to call sadness, you spin out. So you actually take a much longer time to recuperate and keep going. This peel, Rabbi Nachman says, is secular wisdom. Now, why should it be that secular wisdom should cause such sadness? And the reason is like this. Because Rabbi Nachman explains that the whole ikar of the Torah is emunah. Belief that Hashem runs the world, belief that Hashem loves you with an endless, unlimited love, and that every single thing that he does for you is only to bring you closer to him. But you never saw that in a history book, and you never saw that in the science textbook. And therefore, when, let's say, for instance, you go through a challenge or a difficulty in your life, and you are not connecting or internalizing this fact that Hashem is causing what's taking place, only that you should be close to him because he loves you. So then what are you going to think? I'm a loser. If it's just based on science and genetics and DNA, so then I just got a bad lot. I have depression that's been passed down to me for generations and generations. I have learning disabilities that I'm never going to be able to overcome. I have struggles which are inborn. I have addictions that I'm never going to be able to transcend from. Why? Because these are innate. They're scientific. There's no way to disprove these things. However, if you have emunah, emunah means machadish, Rabbi Nachman says, that everything can change. Just the belief itself that you can change, you're already free. We have a mitzvah from the Torah that every single day a Jewish man and woman has to remember that they left Mitzrayim. Why should you remember every single day that you left a country that we left thousands of years ago? And the answer is because Mitzrayim comes from the word Meitzarim, which means constricted. It's not a physical place. It's a mindset that I can't change, that things can't get better. Hashem saying, I'm your God. I took you out of that place. To believe in me means that you're not in Mitzrayim. You're in the land of Israel. Everything can change at any given moment. When I was in the psych ward, I was explaining some of the teachings of Rabbi Nachman and the Torah to some people who were around me. And one girl who was there was listening. She goes, wow, it's so interesting. He said the world pops into and out of existence at every moment. He said, you know that according to quantum physics, it's true that they see now that through certain, technology that they utilize to look at the universe through the perspective of quantum physics, they literally see everything in the world popping into and out of existence. So right now, this chair is, and you are, and I am, every moment, it's brand new. Even science bears it out at this point. So what does that mean? That means that even though you may have been depressed for 20 years, but that's only because Hashem chose that at every single moment. And that means in the next moment, he could choose not to. If I really believe that, then I'm going to speak to him. And if I'm going to speak to him with that belief, that speech is not going to be like, Hashem, I need your help, and then go work for 10 hours and wonder why my life sucks and I keep doing this every day. Instead, I'm going to be screaming. I'm going to be crying. I'm going to be begging. Because if the real truth is the next moment can be completely different, so then I just need Hashem to agree. Does everyone understand that?
Say it again.
If it's true that the world is popping into and out of existence, that I'm popping into and out of existence, that Hashem is recreating the world, my circumstances, my situation, my strengths, my weaknesses at every moment. That means that my whole life to this point has not been one long static experience that just continues. It's been recreated that way. Hashem has decided for 15 years I was an atheist. He decided for 15 years I should suffer from depression and anxiety. Why is that comforting? It shouldn't be. If anything, maybe it should make you more sad or more frustrated. But it means that just like he chose that for you at every given moment, if he decides to in the next moment, he could choose to change that. And considering the fact that he loves you with an infinite love, so he should want to. So why hasn't he done that yet? And a very deep reason is because we are looking for life to be something that it's not. And this is something that secular wisdom proliferates. That is, let's say, success. You're here to have success. I'm going to go to work so that I can succeed. I'm going to learn so I can succeed. I want to have a relationship with someone because that's a success. That means I achieve something. And it all comes from Western society, and it all comes from capitalism, and all of these different streams which are bringing you to this same overt. That is that you run your life. That you run your life. Because if I run my life, that means I can determine how successful I am or not. But then what happens when you try your hardest and you're not successful? What do you fall into? Depression. Now you think it's because I should be, because I'm a loser. But what if your success has nothing to do with your efforts? What if your efforts are one thing, and then what happens after has nothing to do with that? Just what Hashem decides. Then all of a sudden, I can focus my energy on what I do control. That's my effort. And this is what I'm going to value myself with. Did I do the best I could today? Yes. I sleep like a baby that night. In the past, it had to work out exactly like I wanted to. And if not, I'm a loser. What is that based on now? It's based on a lie. The lie is I run my life. I run the world. And I don't. And it's the most freeing, most liberating thing when you let yourself experience the fact that you don't run the world. It's okay. It's good. It's nice. Thank God. Okay? So this is 2 points. You have the concept of speaking to Hashem, because this is what cultivates Emunah. It doesn't come from watching Torah Anytime classes. It doesn't come from having a really geschmack conversation with somebody about Hashem. All those things could be inspirational. What is it that actually creates Emunah, that you really believe that Hashem runs your life, that he loves you, that he wants the best for you? By talking to him. A person might say, that's very hard. How do I have time to do that? So when people say that to me, they say it's true. What Rabbi Nachman says to do, it's very hard. But it's harder not to. It's hard to, but it's harder not to. Okay? What are some other points that Rabbi Nachman brings that changed my state from one of intense depression and suicidal ideation to literally go across the world teaching people how to be happy? Okay? Second point is what do you fill your cup with? In this world, the way that we usually operate is that our mind is hefker. Does anybody know what hefker means? It's ownerless, right? Someone's like, yo, bro, you got to see this video. Shows it to you, right? Did you ask him what's in the video? No. Why not? How do you know it's not going to make you feel sad? How do you know it's not going to make you feel bad? How do you know it's not going to make you feel anxiety? Does that matter? What do you mean? But what am I going to do? I'm going to put myself in a box and lock myself in a box? If you had a precious diamond, you had a precious gold, what would you do with it? You put it in a special box. You would clean it every day. You'd make sure nothing else got in there. If it was something that was very, very precious to you, you would take care of it. You would protect it. You would cultivate it. You would grow it like a beautiful garden. Rabbi Nachman says, what can you do further? Can you throw something further? You can kick something further. You can throw it further. What can you do? Can you throw it further, or could you speak further? You could speak further. Can you speak further, or you can smell further? You can smell further. Smell further, you can hear further. You can hear further than you could smell. Can you hear further or can you see further? You could see much further than you can hear. You could see the stars. Now go up one step. You have your mind. Imagine what you can do with that. And we just let whatever the world has to offer into that place. It's a place that goes beyond the stars. Rabbi Nachman says you need to be so vigilant about what you let into your mind. One of the ways that I had this transformation was that for like the first 3 months after I left the psych ward, I said from now on, for these next 3 months, I'm only filling my brain, only filling my mind with positivity. I'm only filling my mind with people who are encouraging me. I'm only filling my mind with Torah classes, not just that give me Torah lessons, but ones that make me feel hope. And if they don't make me feel hope, I don't listen. 3 months like this. And a person who sees me on the outside is like, my gosh, you literally put yourself in a box. You're living like from the 1800s. But you also notice they were much happier back then. What was the reason for that? Because they were simple. Why were they simple? Because they didn't have everything going on. That doesn't mean that these things don't have something to offer, but it's your choice of what to let in. We think that our mind is hefker, completely. And as a result of that, we let it in. Now, psychology says this, but Hasidut taught this 250 years ago. That is that whatever your mind thinks about, that creates your emotions. Your emotions are what create your actions. So therefore, what you let into your mind is going to completely construct your psychological space, your emotional space, and the positivity or the construction or the destruction of your actions. And it all starts with what is in your mind. What do you think about? What do you see? What do you experience? It says about all the tzaddikim in the Torah that they had good eyes. What does it mean they had good eyes? It means they only saw good. Right? A person sees somebody in the street and they're looking down. Oh my God, this guy's a fanatic Jew. He's Haredi. I haven't figured out what it meant yet. But Rabbi Nachman says the greatest fanatic in the world is the person who doesn't take care of his mind. He just lets whatever he wants comes in. That guy's really a fanatic. And I know we don't think like this, but we should start thinking like this. Your mind is your treasure. You have to cultivate it. You have to give birth to it. You have to be precious with it. You have to literally, I've had times that I was with my wife. She's like, do you want to see this? And I said, is this in there? Oh, yeah, but don't worry about it. It's just like for 1 second. I'm like, no, I prefer not to. Oh, okay, so I'll just like skip it over. I'm like, is this in there? It's like, well, yeah, but it's not the point of the video. It's just like, no, I'm good. Okay, that's weird, But then I had a great night. And if I would have saw that, I wouldn't have. So it's taking ownership over your body. It's taking ownership over your mind and over your heart. It's being free, okay? Now, there's different Torah, right? There's different wisdom. One of the great things about Chassidut, one of the most unbelievable things about Chassidut, is that it's bringing within the peels. Everything in this world is a peel. Even this conversation is a peel. This experience is a peel, right? How I look is a peel. All of these things are external. Chassidus teaches that when you attach yourself to the external level of anything, that's what causes emotional distress. That's what causes psychological turmoil. Why? Because like we said, that's the peel. Like for instance, a person comes to you, says, I really like you. Why do you like me? You're hot. You look good. Okay, great. But like in 10 years, I'm not going to look like this anymore. Right? Is there any other reason you like me? I mean, let me think. Yeah, you're funny. What if I stop being funny? Are you going to like me then anymore? That relationship's not going to work. You know why it's not going to work? Because they don't like me. They like how I look. They like how I sound. But they don't like me. So too, do you like yourself? If you're spending hours looking in the mirror so that you look a certain way, you're doing it because you have associated yourself with how you look. which I know in the modern world, that's the only normal thing to do. It's also the most destructive thing to do in the world because you're not how you look. Your beauty is not dependent on how you look. And therefore, if you're constantly working on how you look and how beautiful you are on the outside, what about that time that you could have used to make yourself more beautiful on the inside? And that thing doesn't change. That thing lasts forever. And that thing's real. Chassidus is the inner Torah. And therefore, for anybody who doesn't learn it, I highly suggest that you take a time every single day, just like you take a time every day to talk to Hashem, hopefully that you have a little bit of motivation to do so, have a space and a time, to learn a little bit of Chassidut every day. Everybody connects to a different one. Someone connects to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, another person like me connects to Rabbi Nachman. But there's a Hasidic master that's out there who can mamish give you life, who can mamish give you hope, joy, clarity, make you think deeply about things you never thought about, make you feel things you never felt. You have to search for that person. And you have to take the time every day to listen to what they have to say. Okay? So this is the second thing. Third thing is something that I learned from my wife, and then eventually from Rabbi Nachman. It's called Tamimut, simplicity. I grew up and I was very sophisticated. Very sophisticated. I tried to finagle my way to make everything happen that I wanted to happen. If it didn't happen the way I wanted it to happen, I would manipulate my circumstances, my conversation, the people I was with, in order that it should turn out the way I wanted. And Hashem let me do that for a while, and it worked. But then, once I got out of school and I started to live in the real world, it stopped working. And that was the only skill I had developed for all these years. And now, once I'm trying to be sophisticated, trying to make things happen, and they weren't happening, then I went into complete disarray. You'll notice that the first time the Nachash comes up in the Torah, this force of negativity, which is the source for all of our struggles in our life, right? We know that the Nachash wasn't even a physical snake, even the Midrash says that. So what was the Nachash? It says, the first thing it says about him, he was sophisticated. Why is the Torah telling you that? To show you that the cause of all negativity in our life is sophistication. I used to try and make things happen all the time. I don't try to make anything happen anymore. I just do things. I'll give you an example. When I got to yeshiva, I'm looking around at all the books. I said to my rabbi, I never learned Torah before. I never learned Gemara before. I don't know Hebrew. I don't know Aramaic. I said, I want to be a rabbi. Can I do it? So he looked at me and he took my hand and he said, do you want to? And I said, yes. So he said, so let's do it. However, for the next year, I was looking around at the million books that were in the yeshiva and so daunted by how am I ever going to learn any of this or all of this, that I could actually do this with my life. Why was I doing that? Because my whole life I was busy trying to figure out how to get things done. And therefore it didn't make any sense. There's no way I'm going to. So when I go over to my Rabbi and I'd say to him, can you give me like a curriculum? Can you give me a structure that over the course of a few years, I'm going to get to this grade and this grade and this grade. Maybe you don't do this, but it's going to help me. This is how I used to do things. And he's like, David, just start learning. And I go, okay, but like, how am I ever going to get here? He goes, just start. And I thought he was out of his mind. And then what? I just started, and then what? I want to tell you something unbelievable. If you take every moment of your life that you try and do something, and instead of trying to do it, you just do it, you're going to see unbelievable things take place in your life. Don't try and take on this profession. Go do it. Don't try and work on this part of yourself. Start doing it. Even if you're planning, don't think about how you're going to be planning. Plan actively. Like, how am I going to start now? For instance, let's say someone says, I want to move to Eretz Yisrael. So how do you be not sophisticated in planning to get to Eretz Yisrael? Plan how you're going to get there with the idea that you want to get there now. So how can I start doing that? Not how am I going to make the most money, and how am I going to get to the right place, and how am I going to do this, and how am I going to do that? All theoretical. All of that comes from the thought that you run your own life, and we don't. The only thing we can do is try. And when you realize that, it's the most liberating thing in the world. The rest you give to Hashem. You know, Rabbi Nachman used to, all week, he would literally try the best that he could. Just try, whatever it was. He was trying his hardest. And then when the time Shabbat came, he said, Hashem, I did what I could this week. Shabbat, I'm just going to put my feet up, kick back, and I'm going to be happy no matter what happens. It's up to you to make sure the Shabbat goes great. And he'd literally throw it on Hashem. Anything in his life. I did what I could, now it's your time. You do it. Your thing. Same thing with us. We don't understand that Hashem wants to help us. He really, really, really wants to help us. But he wants you to know that he's helping you. Why? Is he an egomaniac? Is he psychotic? Why does he need you to know that he's helping you? Why doesn't he just let you do it? When Adam and Chava were in the garden, it said that rain couldn't come down. Why couldn't it come down? Until they prayed for it. Why does Hashem do that? The ecstasy you're going to feel from that. That he's just been waiting to hear from you genuinely. Okay? Tamimut, simplicity. This is being simple. Not trying to do things, just doing them. This is another point, okay? Okay, this is very, very big important point. Someone just tell me the time. I'm not good at keeping track of this. 10:26? Okay. Rabbi Nachman calls it hikashru to a tzaddik, attachment to a tzaddik, which we're going to call for like our connection to a mentor. Okay. You know, if you go to like a substance abuse anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous, you're going to have a sponsor. If you're a chassid, you have a tzaddik. If you're in a certain business, you have a mentor. Hashem made the world in a way that you always need someone to help you. Because the greatest disruption to your life is thinking that you're in control and you can do it on your own. And therefore, the best thing that a person could possibly do is find someone that invigorates them, someone that challenges them, someone that motivates them, someone that brings them up to the highest places, someone that makes them feel that there's hope in their life and they can achieve these things that they want to. Maybe they've seen that they've done it themselves and attach themselves to them. What does it mean to attach yourself to them? It means learn what they have to say. It means pray on what they have to say to try to bring it into your life. It means if they give you advice, utilize it even when it doesn't make sense to you. Now you might say, but that's crazy. If a person gives me a piece of advice and it doesn't make any sense to me, so then how can I do that? It's like being in a cult. However, if you think about it logically, everything that you have tried has not worked. So if this person said something that made sense to you, you would have already thought it up on your own. So the fact that he tells you something or they give you something over that doesn't resonate as sensible should actually be a very, very optimistic sign for you that maybe this is something that can change you. Like for instance, talking to Hashem for an hour a day. It doesn't make sense. I have to work for 8 or 10 hours. I have to spend time with my wife. I have to spend time with my kids. I have to be with my students. I have to learn. I have to do this. I have to do that. When am I going to have an hour to do this? It doesn't make any sense. However, part of being connected to someone who has excelled, who is a master of some level of that which I want to acquire myself, more than me. and allowing myself to live with that reality and experiencing the fruits that come from that. Okay? And then like the fifth point that we said, which is simcha, which is joy. So I just want to say the 5 points over again, tell you something quick, and then we can go, I guess, into questions or anything else that you guys want to do, okay? Having a time every day that you talk to Hashem. This was the beginning of me leading a life of depression and anxiety. When you do it literally for an hour, I don't know how to explain it. When the hour is over, you feel your anxiety has dissipated from you. You feel it's left you. Your sadness has left you. How is that possible? There's no way for me to explain it to you. Try it one time, text me after, tell me how it went. I've had enough evidence from myself and from others around me to know that it's something unbelievable, okay? 2, find your Torah. Not just Torah that you like, Torah that's intellectually stimulating. You need to find Torah that enlivens you. You need to find Torah that gives you joy. You need to find Torah that gives you hope. You need to find some chassidus that gives you mamish wellsprings of wisdom and advice and energy that you never thought of. And if you don't know where that is, then you need to pray to Hashem in your Bodhidu to find it. And have it part-time every single day that you're connecting to it, internalizing it. Number 3 is tamimut, to be simple. Simple does not mean stupid. Yaakov is called Ishtam. Yaakov is also considered the genius. Right? Esav said that he out-chochmed me. He outsmarted me. The whole essence of Yaakov, Yisrael, is that there's a brilliance there. But the brilliance that Yaakov has comes from knowing that it's not his own, by being simple. Therefore, I'm not going to try and manipulate the circumstances of my life to make it turn out the way I want to. I'm going to throw myself in Hashem completely and hope for the best. And whatever ends up happening, believing with simplicity that this is the best possible thing that could happen. Okay? You're going to find that when you actually do this, if you allow yourself to, you're going to see that the events of your life often turn out much better than actually when you try so hard. So that's a huge relief. It's also much more energy saving. And thirdly, it's freedom. Rabbi Nachman says all sophistication is completely unnecessary when trying to connect to Hashem. We learn this from the Kohanim, that all year they wore different garments, but when the Kohen Gadol, the greatest tzaddik of the generation, on Yom Kippur goes into the Kosh Kadoshi, the holiest place in the world. This is literally the most elevated spiritual moment of the whole year. What does he wear? Only a white garment. Why? Because Rav Natan says that when you want to truly achieve truth in your life, and peace in your life, and connection, and joy, the only way to get there is through utter simplicity. You have to remove all the other garments. 4th, you need to try really hard to find some mentor, some spiritual master, some psychological healer, someone who has excelled and has achieved something that you're looking for.
Isn't that number 2?
It's connected.
What's the difference?
Number 2 was about the Torah itself. It was about the wisdom that you're learning itself. Number 4 is about the person who's giving it over. It's about having a relationship with that person who's giving it over. Not just the wisdom that they're giving over, but the person themselves, and having a very intimate connection with that person. And not just learning what they have to say, which is the second point, but having connection to him means doing and actualizing the advice that he's giving to you, even when it doesn't make sense. That's obviously based on the fact that you trust him. It's not just picking anybody and doing this. It's someone who you see has tremendous wisdom and excellence in those areas that you're looking for. And then finally, is understanding that sadness is not normative. Just because it's normal, meaning you see it all the time and you experience it all the time, it doesn't mean it's a normative part of human consciousness, of the emotional spectrum. The reason it has been for us is because we believe that it is. Therefore, if it's not real, so then what am I doing with it? The same thing that a drug addict is doing with heroin. So what do I need to do in order to get away from this experience? Because I know it's not going to be good for me in the end. I need to mamish run away from it. Run away at all costs. What does that mean? That means acting silly. That means listening to music. That means dancing. That means singing. That means clapping. Not just sometimes, every day. Rabbi Nachman says that I've lived a good life, and I've tried my whole life to try to figure out what makes a person happy. And I know for sure now that a person cannot continuously be happy if he's not sometimes silly. So now that might not sound so deep. It is very deep. Because if a person can be silly, it means that he's simple. When does a person stop being silly? When he takes himself very seriously. When he's trying to put on a front. When he's trying to be something that he's not. And that's the cause of the sadness to begin with. Be silly. Whatever it takes, you need to find those things that make you happy. For me, what makes me happy? Like some fire song. Something unbelievable. Yeah? Dancing makes me happy. Singing makes me happy. Clapping makes me happy. Hanging out with good friends makes me happy. Joking makes me happy. Talking to Hashem for a long period of time, I found out makes me very happy. Right? Whatever those things are, you can't say, oh, I hope to get to it today. You have to do it every day. If you really want to change, you have to take yourself at the utmost seriousness. What do I need? You need to do it every day. What if your friend comes to you, is like, hey, you want to go out today? You're like, yeah, I would like to, but then I won't be able to do these 10 things that I know that I need every day. So normally you won't have the strength and you're just going to go, even though every single time you do, you come back and then you have to go through this whole period all over again and wonder why I went out last night. The change is going to come when you believe in yourself, when you realize you have the ability to change. And therefore, by knowing you have the ability to, you're going to invest the time and effort in doing so. So these are the five transformative tools. I remember that when I started this organization, which I started a few years ago, called Yisrael Kalmus Project, I realized that I used to think that the way to healing was through therapy. And I found out that the way to healing was through truth. And so I decided to make an organization where I try and give over what I believe is the deepest truth in an effort to try and help people to heal psychologically, emotionally, physically. And over the course of the past 2 years since we opened it, it's been something unbelievable that I couldn't possibly imagine. Okay? So this organization called Yisrael Kalmus Project, when I started it, I was very overwhelmed. I have a learning disability. So therefore, it's very difficult for me to take things onto myself that maybe even a person, it's already hard. So I opened up my own non-for-profit organization. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I'm trying to help a lot of people in a very intense way. And while I'm doing that, I'm also supporting my family. I'm also learning. I'm also praying. And I'm doing my hours of Bodhidut every day. It's a lot of effort and a lot of time. And I don't actually have the ability to do these things. So I remember after doing this day to day to day, I literally was dying. I had no life force inside of me. And it was a morning class at my yeshiva, and my teacher was about to teach Gemara. And I was like, there's no way I can learn Gemara right now. I went down to the basement. I locked myself in a room, and I start crying. And I said, Shem, I'm doing this for you. I made a promise to you. If you ever took me out of that psych ward or you changed my life, I would spend the rest of my life trying to do the same thing for your children. I'm trying my hardest right now. I can't do this. I'm literally trying the best that I can. I need help. And I cried so much I fell asleep. When I fell asleep, I had a dream. This dream, I was in a very dark place. And I had people who kept coming up to me and saying, David, how did you get out? How did you make it out of here? And I said back to all of them, Rabbi Nachman says, Rabbi Nachman roared in a loud voice, Rabbeinu sha'ag b'kol gadol. He screamed in a loud voice, Ein shum yerush ba'olam klal. There's no such thing as despair in the world. And I screamed it to these people in what felt like Gehenna. They said, but how do you get out? I said, Ein shum yerush ba'olam. I kept saying it over and over and over again, screaming it to them. And then finally, my rabbi, who was teaching upstairs, came to me in my dream. He said to me, David, you don't know what you're doing. You have to keep going. You have to keep going. And I woke up. This is the message I want to give you. I know it feels like there's despair. I know it feels like you have every reason to. I know that your life circumstances and experiences have caused this. But I want to tell you something even deeper. The Torah says that even if a knife is put up against your neck, it's a sword. You're not allowed to despair for your life. Rabbi Nachman was throwing up buckets of blood, suffering from tuberculosis. The students crying, watching him, left the room, came back later. Rabbi Nachman said, why did you leave? I was about to give the best Torah lesson you ever heard. He said, but Rebbe, you were throwing up buckets of blood. We couldn't watch you like this. And he started screaming, there's no such thing as despair. There's no such thing as despair. It doesn't exist. By the way, you know, the eternal enemy of the Jewish people, which is also personal, it's called the Amalek. Baal Shem Tov's famous Chiddush is that Amalek is the same gematria as Safek, doubt. Right? I want you to think about something beautiful. I heard this from Rabbi Akiva Tatz once. Everything in the Torah exists in the world. And if it exists in the world, it has its root in the Torah. How many times does the word Safek, doubt, appear in the Torah? 0. What does that mean? It means it doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a doubt. But what do you mean? I have so many doubts. So then you have to start screaming. There's no such thing as despair. And if I'm thinking about it, it means I'm investing in a lie. And take myself serious enough and put in the effort to know that it's not true. And you could say it out loud, sheker, it's a lie. I have hope. This can change. This will change. People say when you see it, you'll believe it. Rabbi Nachman says when you believe it, you'll see it. So Hashem, we should all believe it. I hope everybody had a Gavaldik Shabbat. I hope that you took something from this class to be useful for you. If you want to contact me, you can email me at rabbikalmus@gmail.com or tzionbreslow@gmail.com. We have a YouTube channel. We have about 350 classes there. We have almost 400 students there. We have a lot of content coming in. I write an article every single week. We send it out. If you want me to email it to you before, hopefully it's something that you resonate with and you connect with, something that can help you in any way. I'm here for you in whatever way that I can be. And I really appreciate you guys coming out and listening. You guys have any questions, or I don't know how you want to do this last part?
Yeah, sure. So it's gonna be very simple.
That's good.
Right? Keep it simple. Okay. First of all, thank you so much, Rabbi Kalmus, for
Yeah.
tremendous share. It really takes a lot of courage to get up there and say your story. You know, especially as a mental health professional, to admit that you're struggling yourself is like frowned upon. You know, professional suicide. So it's great. It's a lot of courage. Okay, the way I was thinking to do this is just very simple. When I do an intake assessment with a new client, one of the first questions I ask that one of the like first 10 questions I ask them is, how does spirituality impact your mental health, right? So, you know, in like, I think it's the preamble to AA, they say we've tried everything. We've tried psychiatry, we've tried medicine, we've tried everything, and we had no choice but to admit that we needed spirituality in our lives, right? So it's not just Rabbi Nachman that says, like, you know what I mean? There are plenty of other sources that say that spirituality, and there's a lot of research that shows how spirituality can impact mental health. So the question I just want to ask everyone, and we can go around, and if you don't want to answer, feel free. I want to remind you that we are being recorded and live streamed, so like be mindful of that for when you share. The question is just, how has spirituality impacted your mental health? How does it help you? And I can go first. Well, second, after Rabbi Kalmus. I'll say that a few years ago, I was going through like a bit of an existential crisis. I was really questioning my decision to become a therapist. It was just really mainly because of finances. I was like looking around at my friends who were in high tech. they were making like 6 times as much money as I was. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I chose to go to school so I can be nice to other people. Like, I got to be nice to myself, you know? And I was really questioning my decision. And all the therapy that I knew, it didn't answer my question. And I was very disconnected from religion at the time. I wasn't a very religious person. And I stumbled across this idea from Rabbi Nachman, where he talks about how everything that happens to you in life is for your best. And that means everything. And I remembered hearing that when I was younger in yeshiva. People were like, oh, God, everything is from God, is from the best. And that just pushed me more away from believing in God, because I was like, you're going to tell me like, oh, God saved you from this accident, but what about all the people who he didn't save from accidents, you know? So if you believe in him, then he's just doing bad things to people. But at this point, I heard it, and it hit me differently. And I realized that, yeah, everything that happened to me was for my best, including this decision to become a therapist. And a few days later, I ended up getting a job offer that I only would have gotten working for an insurance company, managing a whole team of people that I only would have gotten if I had a social work. I only got because I had a social work degree. And the money was comparable to what my friends were making in high tech, and it was great. It was great. And yeah, that's how spirituality has impacted my mental health. There was psychology couldn't answer for me why I chose to become a therapist. It only made me more aware of the dysfunctional reasons why I chose it. But then just believing that this is what God wanted for me, and this is what my higher power wanted for me, finally helped me stop that thought loop of just why, blaming myself, shaming myself. So that's my question for you, is how has spirituality impacted your mental health? And if the answer is like it's made it worse, feel free to share that. It's a non-judgmental space, you know? So we could like go in order. We could, if anyone feels called to start. Yeah.
I would say like a big difference that spirituality has on my mental health.
You don't?
No.
Nice. Do you want to expound on that, or?
Just like an observation that I feel like a litmus test, like it's not one of those domino stuff that's whether I'm up or down in mental health. It's correlated to my spiritual state.
Gotcha. All right,
Can I
thanks.
ask you a question?
Sure.
What type of spirituality do you connect to, and what type of Torah do you learn? What type of practices do you engage in?
I learn Hasidut, I learn Gemara, I learn Parsha.
Do you actualize any of the advice that the Hasidic masters give?
So the meditations are the Chassidus, yes. So when I daven, I think of them in the words praying.
Okay. I feel like you mean within the Amidah.
Shema.
I highly suggest, with like all my heart and soul, that you take a time, that you talk to Hashem in your own words, in your own heart, and I think you're going to feel something different.
I'll go next. And I've also, if you don't mind, I've also got a question for Rabbi. The first time I really connected to spirituality was I was brought up religious. My sleep that I wasn't religious, and being brought up religious, you automatically you're always saying Baruch Hashem, thank you so much, everything's amazing, Amunah, B'tachon, but I was never really connected to any of that. I was just saying words. I was saying what I was taught. I was never actually actualizing any of that. And there was a stage in my life I was living on this farm, working this farm, and I was very, very into my thoughts in depth and enjoying my thoughts, and I never knew any of my thoughts were connected to any Judaism. And happens to be I had a friend who's brought up completely secular, so it's the opposite, and now he's becoming religious through Rabbi Nachman in the IDF. And we used to talk a lot, and a lot of my thoughts that I was saying, he said, yeah, Rabbi Nachman said that. Rabbi Nachman said that, and that just to me was really powerful. But like, it just, I don't know, just like showing you that like God is like kind of guiding me in a beautiful way. So for me, that was like the first time I was like, hey, I wasn't like, my thoughts are crazy, because a lot of times I can't share my thoughts because like, if I share my thoughts, people are going to think I'm insane. That doesn't make any sense. Why would you say that soul and that person, that doesn't go together? So that was very reassuring to see that someone actually wrote it down, kind of gave myself hope and belief in myself, appreciate myself and my thoughts and my knowledge, which was very powerful. And now I've got a question. I've got a very, very close friend of mine that is going through a very hard stage of going through depression right now. Amazing guy. So how do you, I don't believe in trying I used to try and like, interrogate people on why, what is it, what you go through, and I personally believe now it's about, just being there for them. So what's your advice on how to do that, or if that's even the right thing, to be there for a very, very close friend of yours? Just because I know, please God, you'll get through it and I'll be strong, but as a good friend, how would you advise me to act with
Sure.
a friend?
So I just want to comment on the first part about your experience, because I think Rabbi Nachman would say the reason you had such thoughts because you were on a farm. Rabbi Nachman says that when you should go have these thoughts that you have, you should try to do it in nature, in a field, in a forest, because you have something called Yishuv Dat. You have clarity and peace of mind in those places. And that's the reason in the Torah that all the sages, even back to Hevel, they were all shepherds. And it's not a coincidence. It's not just because they're leaders and that's the concept of a shepherd, that's the concept that we usually connect to. But the deeper reason that Rabbi Nachman is bringing out, and actually Rabbi Bechaya speaks about it, is that they're all doing hipodadut. And because they're all alone with Hashem as shepherds, they're able to have a very deep connection and to think these types of thoughts to draw that. So that's one thing.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So second thing, Rabbi Nachman says in the 5th lesson of the Likutei Moharan, what does it mean that the world was created for you? There's a very beautiful Gemara, and everybody loves this saying. Oh, you have to say every day, the whole world's created just for you. It's beautiful. So Rabbi Nachman takes it a step further. He says, for what? It was created for you, for what? So that you should look at the world and whatever's missing and to pray to fill that lack. That's why you were created. That you should fill the lackings of the world. How can I fill the lackings of the world? Especially if I'm going to be so simple. So then how am I ever going to do anything like that? So when you realize that Hashem is causing whatever's taking place at every moment. So your friend needs Hashem a lot. So I could give you practical pieces of advice, and I will. But the truth is, I could give you them, and they could be good pieces of advice, but if Hashem doesn't want, he's not going to get better from that. And the opposite as well. So one thing I would do is take a time every day that you pray for him. And not just in your Amidah, but very intensely. And when Hashem sees how much you love him and how much you care about him and how deep this is for you, it's going to go a long way towards helping him. Second thing is, how much has he seen Rabbi Nachman's Torah?
I don't think yes. Maybe from Moshe 1, but it's
Did he like that?
yeah, it's very good.
I'm gonna send you some articles that I wrote, and maybe some classes that I taught, and send it over and see how he feels. One of the things about being in that space is feeling like you're all alone, and that nobody's ever been in this place. One of the things that Rabbi Nachman does in an unbelievable way is makes everybody feel like he's been there, and that itself is very healing. And then he gives you tremendous amounts of hope. And so, like I was saying before, the Torah is called life. It's called Chaim. And Chassidus, it's considered almost like, a 6 days of the week, and then you have the 7th day. So the 7th day is Shabbat, which is a taste of Olam Haba, the world to come, which is only happiness, only joy. And then we have 6 days of the week that go into it, which are difficult, challenging, which is corresponding to 6,000 years that we're here. So how do you get from the challenging 6,000 years that you're here to eventually get to the place of Shabbat, of Olam Haba, that place of joy? So I heard this week from Rav Leibish Hundred, who heard from a big Breslov Mashpia. He said, when a person goes to the bar to get a drink, They want to have a good time. So, but often before they can get to the bar, they have to take a shot first. Okay? In order to even get to the bar, they have to have a drink first. So too.
You mean pregame?
Yeah.
We all know about pregame.
So too, and I'm not encouraging that, but so too, to get to your state of Olam Haba, you need to have a little taste of it now. And that little taste is Chassidus. Baal Shem Tov came to this world in order to give us a taste of Olam Haba before we get there. And it's not like a nice thing, and therefore it's that you need that shot before you can get to the bar. So the practical thing that I would do is that Chassidus that he connects with, send him it. Give him things that are going to encourage him, that are going to machazik him, that are going to relate to him, that are going to show him that people have been in this place and they came out and through these different means. So I'm going to think more about it, and I'm going to visit the show, will be in contact, and I'll send you some.
Yeah, and Rabbi Nachman says that when you come to appreciate that everything that happens to you in this world is for your good, that is a taste of Olam Haba. That's the taste of the world to come. Yeah. So I guess back to the original question, like how has spirituality impacted your mental health?
Let me say something. I don't really know how to put this all together, but like since I'm 18 years old.
You're a baby.
Baby, I'm still a baby.
You're a whole year.
Yeah. Huh?
18 to getting married.
Hi. I guess like through high school, through like my childhood, I always felt like I needed like a deep connection with like either with a person or something. I always felt like there was something missing inside of me. Like I tried to fill that with a lot of different things, whether that was you know, a lot of things that gave me short-term happiness, like weed or nicotine, or whether it was just like trying to like build the connection with like a girl or like a friend, and like, a lot of that stuff like didn't really work out. So I kind of just resorted to just like, you know, being the lone wolf, being myself, and you know, that worked out for me. But you know, same out like what you said, you know, we felt like crazy, like sharing thoughts if you would think you're insane. I just like when I'm in Rabbi Kalmus's night Seder class in H. I remember it's like first or second class. Like he started like giving people Moran cheer. And I remember I felt feeling of love, like an extreme feeling of love inside of me. And I felt understood because what he was telling me outside I felt my entire life. Like what the things that were written inside of this book, like they were really just like inside of me this entire time. It was just bringing out myself. And I realized like why I felt so like inclined to eating my like let's say with my body and not my neshama with the short-term happiness, because I identified with everything else besides who I truly was, and you know that's not, you never truly be happy if you keep doing that. You never really have like a permanent happiness, because yes, nothing is permanent if it's not your neshama. So once I, like you said, like how it affected your mental health, is that once you start like identifying with who you truly are, really your soul, you start, you know, eating what can make your soul happy, and start doing the things that, you know, make your soul happy and who you truly are. And I'm not there yet, hopefully soon, but you know, you can start actually focusing on what truly makes you happy and being in a better place and helping yourself. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Being practical, like we live in a city.
Get out of here. No, I'm just kidding.
Where people do it where. I live in Katamon, there's not much forest or woods.
There's if you go like to Gan Soccer in the back by the playground, like up by the Knesset. There's like woods over there.
Or-
Yeah, but don't talk too loud because I might be there.
I actually heard a funny story. The rabbi's never done a cat, I don't know if you guys ever heard, but he moved to Eretz Yisrael, and then he wanted to come do Ibodedut in his backyard, and he saw somebody there praying very intensely. And the Rav came over to him and he said, sorry, do you mind, like, this is, yeah? And he goes, what do you mean, this is my Makam Kavua? He goes, this is my house. This is my backyard, get out of here. Anyway, one of the outflowing of Hashem's love for you is he's going to give you a place wherever you are to be alone with him. And that's something you also have to daven on and pray for. I remember I was in my yeshiva. It was freezing in the winter in Queens, and there was no place for me to go. And a lot of times I didn't have a car. And if I went all the way to the field, it would be take too much time for me to go and come back. So I literally, I went up to the attic and I just started crying to Hashem, Hashem, I need you to do like a nace for me. Just make a place for me to talk to you alone. I don't know where it's going to be or how you're going to do it, but I'm begging you, I really want to be alone with you every day, please. Next day, I come into the yeshiva. They start constructing a brand new room in the yeshiva. And I said, what is this room for? They said, we haven't figured it out yet. We're just building it. They literally built a brand new room. Nobody used it. I went in there every day. I talked to Hashem. Locked the door. You couldn't hear anything from the other side. It was unbelievable. So even though best case scenario is to be out in a place where you have yeshiv das like that, still, anywhere you can get it, even if it's alone in your car. But the main thing is that you feel safe. You don't feel that somebody's hearing you. You don't feel any anxiety. You have to be able to be completely you. Because something I wrote about in this week's article that I wrote, that as time has gone on, you start to, and you talk to Hashem out in the field every day, you start to have very deep revelations about yourself. And one of those very deep revelations I had is that really most of my emotional suffering and challenges in my life has not come from people, places, or circumstances like I have attributed them to growing up or as an adult, but it's really because I don't believe in myself. And so too here, you need a place that you can actually be you, because part of believing in yourself is allowing yourself to be like you. And we are so busy trying to be something that we're not, even not consciously. To have a space that I don't have to worry, like some people, they act very serious and then they come home, they put on their favorite like 80s music and they start dancing naked in their house, right? Like, that's crazy. You can't do that outside. But that's you. And imagine that every single day, you're never really you. What do you think is going to happen to you? You're going to fall apart. That's called galut. That's called exile. So if you have a time every day that you can be you without any worries or concerns at all, just that hour, then for the rest of the day, you could feel the geula that comes from just being you for 1 hour yourself. Sometimes I go in my car and I scream at the top of my lungs, actually almost every day, right? Okay? There's deep Kabbalistic reasons why Rabbi Nachman says to do that, but just on a very simple level. Why am I doing that? Because I feel like it, and I never am able to because it'd be bizarre. So what do? I go in my car and just scream at the top of my lungs. I was with my son recently. I said, where are you going? He's 5. I said, I'm going to do Ibodedut. They know, because even when they were like 3 or 2, I would take them to the forest with me. I'm trying to really inculcate them in my breast of cult as soon as possible. So when I took him out so often, and then now he said to me, Abba, but I want to do Ibodedut with you. I said, that's amazing. I'm so happy, but that's not Ibodedut anymore, because then I'm not alone. So I said, why don't you go into the bedroom, and you can go talk to Hashem? He goes, yeah, but then if I scream, everyone's going to hear me. Oh my gosh, I was so happy. I was like, you're right. I don't have an answer for that. I don't know what to tell you. So anyway, you have to have a place that you can do anything. I remember one time I went to my parents, and so they know now I do this. I'm away for an hour. They have no idea what I'm doing. So I said, is there any way you think I can do this? So they said, we have a backyard. You go in the backyard, So I went in the backyard, but I went into the woods, in. And I didn't realize I went beyond the property because it was just woods. And when I do Iboda, dude, it's like at this point, in the beginning, I was just like, thank you. I was crying most of the time. I could barely speak. But then, now it's more like a lot of dancing and a lot of singing and a lot of clapping and a lot of screaming. So all of a sudden, I see these armed guards start to come into the forest and tell me, don't move. I said, okay, I'm talking to God. And they said, aha, so you're in the middle of the woods and you're singing and you're dancing and you're talking to God. Like, do you think that's normal? And I said, yes, but I could see how you wouldn't. And then they're like, we need backup. This guy's crazy. So anyway, what was the point? The point is, you gotta have a space like that. Obviously, I didn't pick my spot so well this time, but this is, even in your own car, in your own room, somewhere. But you got to be able to just let it out.
I'm gonna say something. Your question says that. What was it again? One more time.
What impact does spirituality have on your mental health?
I used to think that I'm not like gonna say anything about the question itself, but I'm saying like you'll understand what I'm gonna say. Like when a person comes from outside, like you're saying, talking about screaming or like whatever it is, from the outside you hear like everybody screams. Never screamed in my life. You learn a little bit from the perspective of Kabbalah or Rabbi, and instead of just like instead of like looking at two pieces of different facts, like I know what this side says and I know what this side says. That's usually how a person usually works. You deal with what you thought about something before, or you thought about something afterwards. So it's like, okay, that felt good. Like you're like, okay, that felt good. But then you kind of go away from it and you're still holding on to the thought of what you thought about it before. And it's interesting because I started realizing a lot of similar to what you were saying. What's your name,
Daniel.
I basically started to recognize that there was too much of an overlay of all the different things that are going on in reality. And the different things that the Torah, and I would say exactly like Kalmus said, Chassidus and Kabbalah, I wouldn't say like, I'm just saying the things that we're able to understand, Chassidus, and in a very revealed way. A lot of these things are kind of showing that these things already exist in our world when we're just really not aware at all. Like we kind of think we're screaming. Why are we screaming? Because we don't really know how to scream. Why are we screaming at somebody? Because we don't realize we're not supposed to scream at, you're not supposed to scream at your wife, you're supposed to scream to Hashem for the solution, for the problem that you were yelling at your wife. And that wasn't the right place, right? So it's not really so much that is, I would say, I'm not saying like, again, about the question. I would say that spirituality is mental. It is mental health. It is mental health itself on its own. There's no separation between the two. And I started to recognize this at a certain time that the reality that I was trying to learn like something new, as if to say this new thing, like Rabbi Kalmus was saying, it's chachut, like it's something new. It makes you new. It's redefining who you are, what you think is possible, what you thought about before, and people are usually afraid to kind of throw that in the garbage. You got to throw that in the garbage. Like I really got to throw the pets. People are really afraid to let go of what they used to think. So, I used to, at a certain time, I was like, either it's real or it's not. There's no such thing as mental health. If it's real, so what does real mean? It's good for me. It's Hashem wants this for me. Hashem would never want the same thing for me, for you. Maybe there's certain overlapping good things, but for sure there's certain things for me. So if he's really that real, so a scream really means X. Okay, so I took the weapon, I use it for something else. That's understandable. Anything in this Baal Shem Tov said, you take a broom, you could use it to hit somebody or sweep your Shabbos. You do anything in the Kaddish and elevate it to its purpose. So you started to see just this simple, just being straightforward, not thinking about what the rest of the world and the general perspective of the Yetzer Hara, of the media, of the norm, even modern way of thinking is that like you still is still waiting, expecting results like this, and not being invested in the process, and not realizing like it's not about what kind of like as a battery. Will I have 10% battery in 2 more seconds? It's that am I plugged into the charger? It's all about am I hooked into the radio frequency? Because if I recognize that I'm a battery, I don't mean Chas v'Shalom that we're a battery, Chas v'Shalom like the Matrix and everything like that. If I recognize that I'm a neshama, I'm a soul, that I'm actually supposed to receive something from a certain place. And if I pretend like I'm something else, so no wonder why I'm not happy. Like how can I can't even fool myself. I don't feel great. I really don't feel good. And when I'm hooking up into this frequency, I start seeing everything is amazing. Why should I question that? Why do I need a scientific proof for that? And why, like, I've spoken to many who have the same exact, or not the same exact, similar results, where they start to see certain things about themselves. And by the way, what he just mentioned before, like saying I'm not having faith in myself. You know how many klipas he has to remove to just, I'm saying like the facade of who a person is, to try to figure that out, because it's really deep to say, oh no, the real reason is not because he hurt me, it's really because I didn't believe myself. That's why I'm gonna, it's really, I'm saying it's to remove a lot of static, a lot of static. And it's basically, again, it's all tapping into the answer to that question. I really feel that it impacted me in such a positive way to recognize that either I'm hooking into reality or I'm not hooking into reality. And the reality, like you were saying, is when that there's any possibility. Rabbi Nathan says it says that the main emunah, the most important faith, is to believe in Chadesh Olam, the Hichashus Olam, the renewal of the world. And at any moment, anything can change. The dreidel, same concept. That you can be a foot, you can be Yaakov, and the next second you could be Yisrael. And I think that's the most, I think as a Jew, I think that's the most important thing. You see us going from Galos to Geula in each country that we're coming from. And you see our history right there. And it's kind of, at a certain point, a person who wants to just kind of ask themselves, when is my time? When is my time?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, it is.
I
I know.
Let's get it.
Yeah, how is spirituality helping my health? The questions. So, just to be honest, what's actually going on in my life on a day-to-day basis. I guess I feel like my life is still really just a big struggle on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's not as good. Still struggling with a lot of depression and anxiety. And I know that this is one of the main struggles of the generation. I'm trying every day to fight to get out of it. At this point in my life, my goals for that one is spiritual ones and not Western conventional.
Thank you for sharing that. It takes a lot of courage to share that. So, what are some of the tools those spiritual tools that you're using?
Mostly stuff in my mouth.
Awesome.
You mind sharing some examples that you use?
Examples of stuff.
Yeah.
Something I used recently, like I was going through, I don't know, like for me, I was just feeling very tired and weak and out of it. And it was a Shkia time, or maybe in past Shkia, and I didn't have it yet. And a friend reached out to a friend, and I was like, wow, Mom, can't pull myself together to my mincha. And he said, what he said was like you need to be like happy with like even like every little thing that we already did today. He was like wearing tzitzis and Jew and whatever else. Like he actually asked me, so I was like, oh yeah, I put on tzitzis and I'm feeling and I mentioned a few different good things that I did already. And from that I got like more strength and I pushed myself about the mincha. Actually, like I think I totally snapped out of like whatever. The depression moment, just like snapped out of it from the start.
That was actually something that I wanted to talk about tonight, and then I missed it. I'm glad you talked about it. Zamra, yeah. Rabbi Nachman has a lesson which he says is something you need to keep in your pocket constantly. It's called Reish Pei Bet 282. I think I did the math right. I'm not very good at math. And he says there that the key to being happy is to find the good points in your life and to collect them like notes in a song. He says, what's the essence of a song? Is that it starts with bad, and you have to pick good notes from the bad ones. For instance, when we think about music, let's say you have a musical scale. You play an E chord, and then you're going to fiddle around until you find another note that sounds good with that note. But you're going to come across a lot of bad notes. Don't fit the song. So what do? You discard those notes, and then you pick another note that fits the song, and there's another good note. When you come up with, let's say, 6 notes, now you have a beautiful song. Rabbi Nachman says that what was the backdrop to this beautiful song? It was the fact that you had to elevate those notes from negativity. You needed to pick the good notes from the bad notes. So it's on a very big, deep concept called birur, which is extraction of good from bad. This is what causes the person to be happy, is to elevate the sparks of godliness that are in it. And Rabbi Nachman says that a very practical tool to be able to do so is to locate those good points within you, to say them out loud and to meditate on them. So this is, I believe, what his friend was telling him, is what good do you already have? Forget about what your struggle is right now. Because Rabbi Nachman says that the key to all growth, and it makes sense if you think about it, the key to all growth is joy. Because joy is what allows a person to have the power to want to move beyond his natural boundaries. When a person feels happy, he feels like he can change. When a person feels sad, he doesn't feel capable of changing. He doesn't feel capable of transforming, of adapting, of elevating. So the first step, Rabbi Nachman says, is to be happy. So how do I be happy when I'm not happy? And the answer is by focusing on parts about yourself that are good. So one of the things that Rabbi Nachman says to do is just think about the fact that you're a Jew. He says that even if you realize, which is very hard to, that if a person realizes what it means to be Jewish, he says a person can be happy with this one fact alone for the rest of their life. Even if nothing else is working out for them. They have no money, they're divorced, they have children with health issues, they have their own stuff going on. And you can imagine just every Yisrael that you have to deal with in this world. Rabbi Nachman says, that guy, that girl, if they really understood what it meant, just that they're a Yid, they could be happy with this one thing the rest of their life. Okay? So now when you do this, he says that you're often going to find crevices, meaning, okay, so I'm wearing tzitzit, but why am I really wearing tzitzit? Because I'm scared not to. So then I'm not really doing it for the right reasons. Rabbi Nachman says it's going to happen. He says that's the work of Satan. The whole work of the force of negativity is to get you to see bad. So as soon as you come up with the good point, you're going to be like, yeah, but is it really so good? So then Rabbi Nachman says, as soon as you feel that, pick another good point. Find another one. Keep stringing them together. And you literally feel, once you have enough of those points, you start to feel joy. Enough joy to take that next step. And the reason Rabbi Nachman says is because the main way to joy is song. And the way that you create song on a practical, psycho-spiritual level is simply by locating and digging and rummaging through your life, through your inner self, for good points. When you have enough of those good points, it's going to give you a state of almost instantaneous joy, enough to make that next step. So, Zamra.
I heard from Rabbi David Harris in the neighborhood of Itchmeyer Morgenstern that the whole idea of praying mincha very late in Rabbeinu, like in Rabbeinu Tam when it's really dark outside, it's because you if you learn how to see the light in the darkness, it's never really dark. And so that's why it's good to pray mincha late, So thank you for sharing, brother. Thank you.
He's the Richie Maryland. Yeah, I'm saying that there's money.
Yeah, they pray.
I would know.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's there.
Mothers, they also know the struggles of being moms, and I think, when you struggle with these kind of things and you really feel like that's it, you're out, like there's nothing else to do. But you're still here, so like you're either the type of person that's going to do something about it and be out, or you're just the type of person that's not. And I think naturally we have an innate desire to know how slightly things work, and it's not natural to do something about it. So when you look at that, I think that's like the deepest of despair, where there's no purpose in anything. You're like, what else to do? There's nothing else to do but except put all this unto Hashem. And I think that's the point of any religion, any faith. And it doesn't really matter which one it is. It's just that you're able to just share whatever it is that you're going through with someone else, because your shoulders are just sagging right now. So you're like, I can't anymore, Hashem. Do take it when you have like a really big decision or even a small decision. People that are indecisive, I think that's a picture like Hashem as well. You're like, okay, I can make this decision myself, or there's nothing more to do. You've got to come up to something and you say, Hashem, it's your decision. You made me. You know my thoughts. And every day I go and, at the end of Shmoneh Esrei, like hear what I'm saying. You hear what I'm saying. And all the things that I'm not saying, and all the things that I'm not thinking, and just take it from me. And when we don't have a faith or God or Hashem or a mentor or Rabbi Nachman or whatever your mentor may be, like, who are you sharing with? You're sharing with ourselves and Him. So I think that's what it is when we find ourselves in like this serious and we just don't know what to do. And it's, we shouldn't. It was all the stuff that you were saying, but we do. Some of us do something on it. You just got to remember, it's not all on me. It's not all on me. I'm part of something bigger. I'm part of just life itself, which is already something so big we can understand. To just open that and share it with the next person. And then people that suffer with these things, I'm sure you all know, crying is like an everyday decision. So I think one of the things that Rabbi Nachman knocks on my door about every day is just as much as you cry, you need to laugh just as much. If you're crying twice a day, you need to laugh twice a day. Like there's despair ever many times, those are the times that you need to just jump in the room, jump in joy, and the joy will come. And when we say, like, you're also speaking about gratitude. So when we feel like that, there is no gratitude, like you suck. I've had an interesting life, and every time it's been so, that's it. I think it's over. And then life happens, and you're around for another few months, or another few days. Every time you go through those very hard months, to remember going through it before. And it's like, I thought that was the worst of the worst. Look, now I'm here. So all these times I survived, all these times I've been good. So is this the worst? The worst, then there'll be another time, and I'll see this one so bad. So the times that I'm going to sleep in my bed and so depressed you can't get out of your bed. Thank you, Hashem, for giving me a bed, because I also know what it feels like to not have a bed and to be homeless or to be lying on the ground to be sleeping in a car. At least now I have a bed, so thanks for that. Like all the times I showered with cold water or they go into a stream because there was no running water. Check it out, I've got warm water, even hot water. There's always something. And when we just shift our thought process and think about all the things we'll be grateful for, the joy will come. So I think that's the most what I would say from growing up and growing up and become part of my life. When I was still pretty young, I started studying, those little booklets. I started reading those and taking a study of all these random little things. It just shifts. Like even if it's for a moment, you have to hold on to the moment. Even if 23 hours a day is dark depression, like 1 hour a day, like it just shifts so hard. So I think that's why spirituality, in whatever way or form, as long as it's some straight form and path, then it's so.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. All right, if no one else got anything, thank you, Rabbi Kalmus. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Would not have been the same without each and every one of you. Monday night, we're going to be doing a therapeutic drum circle with Dr. Klempner right here. He's going to be sharing his story of how he was hanging out with the Blackfeet Nation, the Native Americans in Montana, and they sent him to Israel to explore his own traditions. They said, stop focusing on our grandparents, learn about your own grandparents. And then he came to Israel and he's going to share his story and some therapeutic drumming. Anyone who doesn't have my phone number, send me a WhatsApp so you can be updated on events. Also tonight's event was sponsored in memory of Joe Pincus and Zach Myers, 2 people who we lost for mental health issues this year. And also sponsored in memory of a few other people. My great-grandmother, whose yahrzeit was today. Rabbi Kalmus mentioned a few people who were sponsored as our Shalom for. We have a suggested donation, no pressure to give. 10 shekel, I'll pass around a cup. Thank you all for coming. So
I just wanted to say just one thing. The question was how spirituality affects mental health. So, I can really expand on it for a long time. And one of my interests is really very much how sometimes I know growing up in religious and so often spirituality can be a source of pressure in one's life.
Yes.
So as Eli said, some people might be a source of problems in mental health. And part of my interest is very much to see where to find in Torah and in spirituality a way that it could promote the mental health. And I think this event tonight, the vibrational energy that wasn't here, I think this is a very spiritual experience for me, and I'm sure it's going to have an effect on me personally, in my mental health. So thank you very much to Eli and for David for providing this experience.
Thank you. Thank you. Ramati, we're on the WhatsApp group, so we're in psychology, and you always share such good things. Maybe we'll do a class together one of these days. Thank you. It's an honor for you to have you here.
That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah.
So about your question about how spirituality has affected your mental health. For me personally, before I found God or spirituality or anything like that, life was very dark and meaningless for me, just in general. And of course, there were fun times and all that, and things were good, but at the root of everything, it didn't have any meaning or life to it. And besides for the fun moments here and then everything was just kind of dark, and there was, besides like my life and the life of my friends, everything like at the root of it was just like death, like that there was no life at the core of it. It was all just material. And then after I found God, I realized there was that life was at the root of everything. And then once you realize that at the life, and so once I left the world of thinking death was at the root of everything, that's where I was able to find joy. So it's affected my mental health.
Yeah.
That's the girl from Story.
Oh yeah. She,
Yeah.
I was thinking the same.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you don't mention that.
Sorry, I tell the story so much.
Okay.
Yeah. She's my wife, thank God, and
Have fun, but
she's my hero.
It's really completely Israeli.
She's Israeli as it gets. She's Yemenite on both sides. She's a proud Israeli. She hated living in America with me. She couldn't wait to get back. She doesn't understand why people choose to live there. And she taught me a lot. She made me a much better person. And she's the first person I really said someone. This is my first ever. My wife,
Thank you guys. Thank you for coming. There might be some more pizza and beer in the back.
thank you, Ellen.
So thank you.
Hello.
Thank you. Yo, thanks man. Thanks man.